Hey there, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation on why did Jesus speak in parables. I'm your host, Dr. Donnelly Snipes, and this is Good Orderly Direction, Practical Tools of the Bible. In Scripture, it says in Matthew, the disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak in parables?" Jesus replied, "Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will never ever hear. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding, ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they've closed their eyes, so I will not heal them." Ultimately, what Jesus is saying here is the people's hearts had become so calloused, they'd made up their mind about how things should be, that they weren't able to hear. And I think a lot of us can empathize with that in today's time, where people are very polarized. They have their set of beliefs and they refuse to consider anyone else's. And what Jesus is saying here is they have a set of beliefs, and I'm presenting a different set, and they have the ability to listen and hear what I say. But a lot of times when people say things that we don't want to hear or say things that go against what we believe, we tune them out. And that prevents us from being able to hear, from being able to learn, from being able to perceive. And that's really what Jesus was talking about here. Then he goes on in Matthew 18 and says, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." And we've talked in other Bible studies about good orderly direction and how following good orderly direction helps us create that kingdom of heaven, that environment on earth, and helps us be more loving to ourselves and to others. Children are little sponges. They don't have hard set opinions about a lot of things. Some they may, but they are willing to hear, they're willing to listen, they're taking in this information, and over time, they're weighing it to see, all right, what do I actually believe? And that's what Jesus is saying again, that we need to be willing to table our own knowledge and beliefs, be willing to hear that of other people and consider those. We don't have to accept them. We can choose to reject them and no problem. And a lot of people did. A lot of the Jews did choose to reject Jesus's teachings. But then we also have some that, we have Christianity starting here. And recognizing that those people were willing to perceive, they were willing to see the miracles that Jesus was doing and perceive what was going on, hear his teachings and say, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. And we also have to remember that Jesus said early on that he came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And remember, that was directed again towards the Jewish people who had begun taking the law at face value, not acting in the spirit of the law, not acting in a way that the law was help guiding them into a loving situation, but it was instead being weaponized. They were using the law to justify murder. They were using the law to justify some pretty egregious behaviors. And I'm not saying that Christians and other people haven't done that too. But what I'm saying is Jesus wanted to teach us that ultimately it's about loving one another, following good orderly direction to create a loving community. It's not about following the letter of the law. It's about following the spirit of the law. In John 14:6, Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So again, Jesus is talking. He's talking in parables that are confusing, no doubt, to most of us. The parable of the mustard seed and there's lots of parables. And again, why did he do that? He did not want to tell us, here's a problem, here's a solution. Because we can't live that way. We know we can't live that way. As parents, my husband and I learned that we can't have a rule for every situation. We had to teach our kids in general, this is what we want to do. And then you've got to decide based on the situation what you're going to do with it, how to apply the spirit of the law again. So again, back to this. I'm the way, the light, I'm the way and the truth and the life. Jesus is saying, follow what I'm telling you. Learn from these parables about the spirit of the law and about how to love one another. And if you do, then you're going to create this kingdom of heaven on earth, and you're going to be able to reap the abundance of a loving community. How does having a stubborn and hardened heart work against good orderly direction? Well, if you're stubborn, you're not being prudent. The prudent person says, okay, I have this wisdom over here, but maybe I don't know everything. Who'd have thunk it? The childlike mind or the open mind is willing to say, all right, I have this knowledge and it may be right and I may not want to change, but I am willing to hear other perspectives. And that really allows them to grow because the world evolves, we evolve, things evolve. And what may have been true 20, 30 years ago may not be true today. For example, when I was born, the doctor, for some reason, said that honey was good to give to children. And I know this is not a spiritual issue, but it just kind of shows you how things progress. By the time my kids were born, they said, no peanuts and no honey for the first 2 years. Well, our knowledge increased, and it's important to recognize and then take that knowledge. And for me, I always take what somebody says sort of with a grain of salt, and I go check it against the actual research papers because that's just the kind of research nerd I am. But I act prudently. I don't automatically dismiss something because it is not the way I do it. And we see this in recovery. People who follow a 12-step approach to recovery. Some people have wonderful success with that, and that is awesome. However, not everybody fits into the 12-step philosophy. Not everybody's willing to embrace that. And the prudent person, instead of continuing to try to pull somebody in and, shove a square peg into a round hole, they may say, I hear that this approach may not be effective for you. So let's look at some other approaches. Instead of trying to convert somebody to 12-step, they say, you need to be prudent and do what you need to do. Endurance. When we have a hardened heart, it does show endurance if we dig in just like a donkey and we say, we ain't going any farther. But when you have an open heart and an open mind, it also requires endurance because you're hearing things that may make you uneasy. It may make you nervous. And it doesn't mean, again, you don't have to believe it, but it's worth considering. And what Jesus wanted was for people to be willing to hear and consider what he had to say and be willing to follow him. He didn't say you had to. He said, I'm giving you an option, y'all. Respect. When we are stubborn and we refuse to hear other people's points of view, that's just plain disrespectful. That's like saying, I'm smart, I know everything, and you know nothing, so go away. That's not loving. That's not prudent. That's not respectful. You may not like what they have to say. You might not ever agree with what they have to say, but it's respectful to at least hear them and acknowledge they have a different point of view. Forgiveness. When we have a stubborn and hardened heart, we don't hear all of the messages about forgiveness in the Bible. We hear Jesus saying, you gotta forgive everybody. And yeah, it does say that, but there are qualifications, and that's where the parables come in. That's where Jesus is not saying in every instance when somebody does you wrong, do you turn the other cheek? It's for minor infractions. If somebody, comes into your house or into your life and murders somebody, of course, you're not going to turn the other cheek and go, hey, no problem. And it's also important to recognize that forgiveness is more for you than for that person. It's saying, I am going to learn from this so I can stay safe in the future, but I'm not going to continue to invest energy being angry over it because that just drains my energy and rots my bones, as they say in Proverbs. Earnestness is doing what you're supposed to do and doing it 100%, giving it 100% all of the time and keeping your promises. And when we have a stubborn heart, are we earnestly trying to love one another? Are we earnestly trying to recover? And only you can answer that question. And I'm not saying that if you're in a program, like a 12-step program, and it's working for your recovery, I'm not saying, well, consider all these other options out here. No, if it's working for you, then great. Keep doing what is working, what is helping you feel like you're using your energy to move toward good, orderly direction. Be willing to hear other people's points of view and don't diminish them. If smart recovery works for them or something else, all right. You may not agree, it may not work for you, but it's their choice. And that's really where the love and abundance comes in. Ultimately, in recovery, the goal is for people to be clean and happy. You want to have a rich and meaningful life and not be burdened with that addiction. And if they're able to do it with smart recovery and you're able to do it with 12 steps, well, great. You're probably not going to go to meetings together, but no big deal because you're both going towards the same end. The same thing is true with Jesus and with good orderly direction. It's leading us toward the same end, a life of love and abundance. And what's important, having compassion. If we have a stubborn, hardened heart, it's hard to have compassion for people because we're saying, no, you don't believe what I believe, so I can't have any compassion for you. And likewise, they're probably not going to have compassion for us. Or maybe they are. They're going to look at us and go, oh my gosh, how scary and dark must it be in their head for them to be so walled off from everybody and everything. Truthfulness. If you are being truthful with yourself and with others, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. Therefore, if you are refusing to listen, then are you being truthful? Are you earnestly trying to gather as much wisdom as possible and make the best decisions to help guide you in good, orderly direction? Or are you lying to yourself and saying, nah, I got all the answers. Thank you very much. And then selflessness, recognizing the importance of other people and recognizing the importance of other points of view to help us kind of round out our understanding. Just like we all form one body and each person or each part of the body has a different job, we all have different knowledge and perspectives and opinions. And together, if we are willing to listen and hear and compromise, they can help us become stronger. So what if you know, and I have that in quotes for a reason, what if you know the truth? And that means you read the Bible and you know exactly what God meant. I would tell you to go back and read the book of Job, because only God knows what God is thinking. You can't mind read other people, and you most certainly cannot mind read God. In Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 1:10, I appeal to you that all of you agree and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same judgment. Where there is one who is wise, where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? And here Paul was talking about how a lot of we were starting to see the division in the churches. You had different sects following different people. In today's world, you've got Baptist, you've got Catholic, you've got Orthodox, you've got, the list goes on. And they all have different interpretations of the same scripture. And what Paul was saying, and I think what Jesus was saying all along, is the greatest law is the one of love. Love your neighbor as yourself. And whether you interpret laws one way or another, does your interpretation help lead you to a prudent, respectful, loving, compassionate, truthful answer? Does it help you be more loving? If this channel helps you learn more about good, orderly direction and discover ways to be more loving to yourself and others and deal with life on life's terms, please like and subscribe.